Hello friends, I hope you are all safe and healthy and taking care of yourselves while we're all quarantined. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this spring themed Ferris wheel cake, so let's just get right into it. I have a piece of cardstock here that I'm wrapping in some tin foil, and then I'm going to press that down the base of my 8-inch cake pan. I want to make sure that it's nice and sealed on either side, and I'm just pressing a cup up against that to hold it in place. I'm gently pushing in some plastic wrap into that space I created right down to the bottom and into the sides, and then I'm pouring in some melted chocolate, and I want to fill this all the way up to the top. I set that aside to firm up completely, and then I took it out of the pan and gently peeled away my plastic wrap. And after just eyeballing the center, I need to make a hole. I'm using a metal straw that I have here just to very gently push my way through, and then I did widen that hole. I just made sure that it was big enough that my threaded rod could fit through it. I've lined my 8-inch pan with some plastic wrap, and then I'm just tucking that chocolate into the bottom. With my spatula, I'm going to add a layer of vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream and then start adding in my chocolate cake, just alternating the two until my pan is full. I'm building my cake in the pan just because this is going to make sure that I get a perfect circle. I'm not going to end up with a weird oblong shape. I just wanted to make it as easy for myself as possible. I use the top of the pan as a guide to cut my cake nice and level, and then I'm flipping that over out onto another cake board. I've marked the board where the hole in my chocolate is. This is just going to make sure that it doesn't get away from me. It's really important that you maintain knowledge of where the hole is at all times, otherwise it's going to get real messy. I added a thin layer of chocolate ganache to lock in any crumbs, and then once that had set, I added another thicker layer of my ganache, and I'm going to start smoothing that away. I decided to use my Pro Froster just because this is quick and easy, but if you want to use just your bench scraper and your spatula, that will work as well. You just want a nice smooth finish. I remarked in where the hole was using my metal straw, and then I'm going to brush the outside of the entire cake with a thin layer of water. I've rolled out some light blue fondant on my cornstarch work surface, and then I'm draping that over my cake and just working quickly with my hands and my fondant smoother to smooth down the top and the sides, and the water is going to help that fondant adhere. I cut away the excess at the bottom, and then we're going to flip that cake one more time, and I just used a piece of parchment paper between the top of my cake and my cake board, so nothing was going to stick on me. You don't have to do this next step, but I wanted some nice crisp edges, so I used a piece of cardstock and just gently pushed that fondant down towards my work surface all the way around. I very gently separated that board, and then I'm adding some chocolate ganache just to smooth out my base, and then I'm going to add another piece of fondant on top of that. Once I had smoothed out the top, I'm going to flip this cake yet again. There is a lot of flipping in this video, and then I'm going to trim away all that excess with my X-Acto knife, just keeping it really snug to the base of my cake. I flipped it once more, and then I'm going around the edges and the top with my fondant smoother, just trying to close that seam. So I've already put together the structure of my board, and I'm going to have everything that I use linked down below. I've got my threaded rod secured in the center with a couple of nuts and washers on the top and bottom, and I just twisted those down nice and tight so that rod was kept in place. I'm adding another nut and then pushing that about 3/4 of the way down on my threaded rod. This is going to be the support for the bottom of my cake. It's going to stop that hard chocolate from sliding down. So I want to make sure there's enough room underneath for the base of my Ferris wheel, but not too much on top so it pokes through my cake when I add it. And now to make the whole thing food safe, I'm wrapping it with some aluminum foil tape. So now I've got my cake top side up, and I've just folded a piece of parchment paper into 8s. This is going to give me a guide on the top of my cake so I can just section off each little slice and make sure it's nice and accurate and straight. I cut out a long strip of gray fondant, and I'm going to use that to trace around the outside of my wheel. I just used my fondant tool to help me round it out so it wasn't all wobbly looking. And I'm going to start adding some white and gray spokes as well. I used water to adhere everything to the front because I really want it to stick, and I just used the guides that I made to lay each spoke down. Once I was finished, I put my cake in the fridge for about 45 minutes to chill because I want to be able to handle it since I need to pick it up, and then I very gently just slot it into place on my threaded rod and coaxed it down until it hit that support. I covered my board in some light green fondant, and I found it was easiest just to wrap it around, and then I used my fondant smoother to hide the seam at the back. I'm using some brown fondant for the base, and I just roughly shaped that into a fat teardrop shape before cutting a little seam at the back with my X-Acto knife and just very gently wrapping that around my threaded rod, trying to cover all the exposed parts. And then I went back in with a piece of cardstock just to help me smooth everything out. I just wanted it to be tapered at the top and then wider at the base. Now that the Ferris wheel itself is done, I'm going to move on to the little chairs with the animals sitting in them. And this is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to show you a montage. Once I was done with all of the heads, I added bodies to the carriage and then secured each head in place with a little piece of dried spaghetti. When I was ready to add them to the cake, I brushed the back with a little bit of water, and then to make sure that they wouldn't fall or that they were just really on there, I added another small piece of dried spaghetti to hold them in place. I tried to space them out as even as I could, and then along the thicker gray spokes, I'm adding some of these cute little pastel sprinkles. I just secured them in place with a little bit of piping gel. I didn't want the features on the bunny or the lamb's faces to get too lost just because the colors are so light, so I used a very, very small amount of black food coloring on my fine tip paintbrush, and I'm just brushing that into the lines of the mouth and the nose for each one. And then to finish them off, I just added some really simple paws for the bunny and wings for the chick, and then hooves, I guess, for the lamb. And this was the final result, guys. You can see I added a little more detail to the board, but you could do whatever you'd like. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know times are strange right now, but wherever you are in the world, please take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.